So guys, let's start with a quick show of hands. Actually, who, and now listen to the question, owned Bitcoin in the past? Can I have a quick show of hands? This is actually not too many people. Okay, then the most relevant question comes up. Who is owning it still today? All right, so you guys sold Bitcoin when Elon was tweeting. I see. Okay, understood, understood. So bottom line is, right now it's an interesting time. Bitcoin, I'm not sure how the crowd sees it. Is it actually a cryptocurrency? Is it a store, like is it a medium of exchange where people will at some point use for regular payments? Is it just a store of value, like this digital gold aspect they're arguing about? I don't have any idea. But I know that right now everyone is moving forward in adopting digital currencies and not just electronic payments. And that brings us to digital capital. So you have the CBDC setup where central banks are looking to actually digitize money and use it, and that will drive a lot of innovation. And we've been very lucky at Baltasaar to actually be early on in adopting digital capital. And we sit at the neuralgic point between three very important aspects, which is regulation, technology, and then, that is actually pretty important, sales. Because even if you have a cryptocurrency, it might bring you to jail if you don't abide by the regulations and sell it or solicit in a way that is not inside the regulatory framework. So we basically created a solution that allows you to take any investment, be it real estate, a vehicle, be it just regular investment like a debt note, when you give a company money and they get fixed income coupons. We created a platform that allows you to secure and securitize that product and actually push it to entire Europe with one single regulatory framework. So what does that mean? You basically get, with the click of one button, you can publish your financing campaign, you can sell your real estate, and it will be done in a fully regulatory compliant process, including KYC, AML, sanction list checks, criminal watch list checks. And I want to quickly show you how that actually works and give a little bit of background where we started off and where we went. So let's dive into it. How does this thing work? I just click? Okay, perfect. So obviously disclaimer, no investment advice here. So whatever you're buying after the show, it wasn't me. Bottom line is what we found, and actually COVID has been treating us very, very well, because we saw that companies, and specifically startups and small and medium enterprises, they had huge issues raising funds during COVID times. Because obviously you can't travel, you couldn't meet people, so it came in very conveniently for us that we are fully digital. That means you don't need to actually meet with your lawyers, you don't need to meet with your investors, but you can just run them through a digital subscription process. So we created an ultra-convenient, compliant, and secure way how you can raise funds and securitize your products and sell them publicly to entire Europe. So how was funding done in, like, let's say just a company, we have a startup, how was funding done traditionally? Usually you have like 3 steps. You start with the private money, friends, family, and fools. You move on to professional money, which is then the business angels, VCs, in the end maybe PE, like private equities. And then ideally you IPO. But that takes a lot of time. Usually your cap table is absolutely diluted. So that means you lose a lot of shares from your company. And you wouldn't necessarily need to do that, because there's a smarter way today. So we have put this entire process of a fundraising campaign behind one single HTML snippet, which is a button that you need to click. So we can deliver you a HTML snippet that you can integrate into your website. You can include it in email blasts. You can print it as a QR code on a catalog. And the moment somebody scans it, clicks it, he can invest in your company, in your asset, in a completely regulatory compliant way. So it took a while until we got there, because you have to abide by a lot of regulation, specifically when you look at harmonized European Economic Area standards, and we still figured it out at some point. So I'm giving you a little primer here. Obviously, I all want you to come to Baltasaar and either invest or give me your project that we can have investors found for you. And that works in 2 ways. Either you white label us, you just get the tech, or you get the entire service around it, from starting a campaign to fully financing your campaign or your project, your startup, your debt note, to also then managing all the administration part, meaning that entire payment processing is done semi-automatically. And I'm going to show you how that works. But before that, this is typically the players that you need to interact with when you are raising funds. I'm just pulling up that slide to show you it's a lot of actors. And there's a lot of interdependencies, and you need to take care of a lot of stuff. So there's lawyers, banks, escrow, custodian, back offices, etc. And what we basically did is we focused on what is the most key components and how do they interact. So we have always, when raising funds, when trying to sell investments or assets, you're always looking at a regulatory standpoint, you always look at technical standpoint, and you always look at the actual sales side. Who can sell your product? And that is very, very difficult to do when you are in a public market, meaning that you cater to retail investors. You can sell your product to institutional investors, no problem, but they're going to do huge due diligence, and usually it's expensive money. If you go to the retail market and you structure the product in a way that it is compliant, then you will be able to fund faster and cheaper. So what we did is we basically numbed it down to the most important components. First, you need an issuer. That's the company that is raising funds. That is the real estate that wants to be sold. And typically what you have is a one-to-one structure. So that means you have some real estate, you want to sell it to an investor, you have to talk to people a lot. And then you sell it to one person, either one flat to one person, one apartment, or the entire home to one person. We changed that paradigm from one-to-one to one-to-many. Because right now, you can take your real estate that has 10 apartments, you can sell it in a fraction of an apartment. So you can have people buy your house, and it doesn't need to be 10 people that buy 10 apartments, it can be 1,000 people that buy 1/10 of each apartment, and then they will be remunerated and they get their interest from rent, from appreciation of the real estate, etc. So this is the issuer side. Then obviously you have the investor, the guy who actually buys the product or buys 1/10 of your apartment. And then we have the regulator, and that is the part that made me put on 15 pounds at the first time that we actually did the process. It took us 1.5 years. We spoke to German BaFin, the local financial market authority, and basically I felt like they're going to bed with me every night when I was falling asleep. I had the voices of these guys in my head. So it was a cumbersome process, but in the end we figured it out. Regulator asks you need to have a custodian, you need to have a broker, you need to have a rating, and we said, okay, we can do that. They also say you need to do KYC. They also say you need a secondary market, otherwise it's not a security. If it's not a security, you can't sell this local product that you have, like this apartment in Germany, to the entire European Union. If it's a security, you can. So we integrated those guys, and then you obviously need to also abide by 100 rules when it comes to payments. Who is handling the payment? How is it processed? What happens if an investor invests that is not allowed to actually invest? How is it redeemed? How are the funds paid back? How are they secured? So just to give you a little bit of an idea how much digital capital is accelerating, there is quite a few big players on the market that were doing tokenized finance. They either issued a tokenized bond, fully digital, they either issued a share of a company, and they raised from 2019 on roughly 4.5 billion. So this is just some of the few players, but that tells you one thing. If these guys are picking it up, it will be only a matter of time until it reverberates down to every single business that can profit from digital capital. So coming back to the example with the real estate I gave before. Let's say you have the house. You have three different, so you have like a tier 1 and a tier 2 structure. So meaning you can either own the house, you can use it as a tenant, you're renting, or you put a lien on the house, like a mortgage. And all of these three things you can do fully digital now. And you don't need to sell to one person, you can sell to hundreds or thousands people. And you can even put a layer on top, which we are working on, and that's something later down the road for like 2024. You can have all this sharing economy. So the entire, what happens with your flat when you rent it, when you share it, when you invest in it, all the administration can be done on a blockchain. And that will be possible, even though if you buy a house, you still want to have, okay, what's the actually fair market value? And you need to have the guy that's the plumber and tells you, okay, this is not, or this is actually everything intact. So the disintermediation that happens is, also integrated in our system. So, very quick. This is the kind of legal codes we've been looking at for quite a few times. And we basically spoke and talked to all of the major law firms and major accounting firms throughout the process. And in the end, we were able to identify and get 3 products done that we can sell on the platform, fully regulatory compliant. And that is, quickly coming back to that, equity, debt, and anything that can be tokenized, which is a car, which is a house, etc. Company can either sell their shares online to entire Europe through our solution. They can just raise a debt fund that they pay fixed income to their investors, or they can even do MES financing, like mezzanine financing, revenue participation notes. Quickly, I want to show you what the entire process with BaFin and the European notification regime felt like to us during the time when we were doing it. Actually, do I have sound on the video? Okay, there's no sound. Okay, so how many people are aware, or how many people do know Asterix and Obelix? Oh, okay, now more people that own Bitcoin. Interesting. Okay, how many people do know this, the series when he sent to the house that makes people mad and tries to procure permit A38? No? Okay. This is basically what it felt like with BaFin, because in this house, this is the instruction how you get the permit, and I just want to show you what I mean by that. This is the official guide from the local financial market authority how you create financially compliant fundraising. And I'm not going to go into the details, but what I'm trying to suggest here is it's a rather complex undertaking. So you have certain structures they ask for. You have to give certain inputs, specifically financial data. If your company is older than 3 years, you have to give all the financial data for 3 years. And then they also, just take a lot of time to create a regulatory compliant prospectus, which then enables you to raise funds publicly. We basically put everything together in the system. So if you quickly look at the central part, we've done a platform which allows you to take any kind of asset, originate it on the blockchain. We create a digital twin. Right now in Ethereum, we're going to implement a couple of other protocols as well. And then we issue the digital asset and we trade it. So we can do crowdfunding, we can do full public fundraising, we can do private placements, we can do club deals. We have investor networks integrated in our platform that are then serviced to. So we have basically tied agents. We are fully regulated across Europe. So we have tied agents that help us sell whatever product we take on. And we can give a company easy access to funds through either equity, debt, mezzanine, and it can be the real estate, the vehicle, whatever you want to tokenize. Everything is then securitized, and we handle the process from end to end. What does that mean? We take care of all the KYC, the AML, sanction list that I mentioned before. What does it look like? Very, very quickly, I'm going to run you through the process. So this is what you can tokenize in Europe right now from a regulatory perspective, but we covered it already. With the products I mentioned, you can cater to the entire EEA, and this is what it would look like. Look at this Invest Now button at the bottom of the page. This is all you need. The rest is done by us, fully compliant. So you would click it by scanning it on a QR code, by clicking it on advertisement on Google AdWords, by clicking on it from an email that you get from the company. And then you select how much would I like to invest. It's basically onboarding a broker. You give them a little bit of background, or you give us a little bit of background, how much experience you have in the respective markets. You upload your ID. We have our own, like a proprietary video identification procedure that we developed. Then you can either pay in euro, in Ether, or in Bitcoin, and you will be automatically credited the digital asset. You get your confirmation, the funds are placed, investment is successful, and from that point on, you will be paid interest if you, for example, invested in a debt note. Or you would receive rent if you bought 10% of an apartment that is paying rent. And we even do sanction list checks. So we run with the European Commission sanction list checks. If somebody comes in that's on this list, he would obviously not be granted investment, and the payment would be sent back automatically as well. So we're integrated with HCBI and PSD2, which means we basically can operate bank accounts from our clients, or the clients can with our platform. That's put correctly. And that is basically the solution. So you can finance in a public way, which is quite a big deal, when you have a house, a vehicle, when you want to fund your startup, or when you are a small and medium company and need to raise a debt note, for example. What's in the cards for us and the next steps? Basically, now everybody's talking about NFTs. So we've created a digital securitization product. Now everybody's talking about NFTs, so we're looking at that as well. We're gonna integrate an issuance process. We will have a Explorer and a marketplace. Then we're looking at the Stellar and Bitcoin Cash platforms, since we're still operating on Ether and you need gas tanks in order to do token generation events, etc. We are actually live in China and in the US as well. However, official launch is in 2022. So we've established each one guy over in the US and in China. And then we will also roll out institutional products, and that basically means implementing a stablecoin that allows you to do instant settlement. So that means if I send Gordon some money for the apartment he sold me, then it might be that Gordon, God forbid, goes bankrupt before the apartment is transferred, or before he transfers me the money, and this is called counterparty risk. That is completely nullified when you have instant settlement through a stablecoin. So that's one of the products we're working on for 22. Almost done. 2 new financings coming in June and in August. 2 new clients that we're going to start, one oil company, one real estate company. And we are going to be basically busy with that until the end of the year. And this is just a little bit of inside what it looks like. So as a company that wants to raise funds, you would get your dashboard that basically tells you exactly who has invested, in what currency, what's their total data. You see when the investments came in. You can access it obviously from mobile, from desktop, and we even have a KYC process that we're now outsourcing. So we have a standalone solution. We have now a huge investment fund in Germany that are using our KYC and AML modules just as a service. So you can either hire us as the guys that do everything for you, or you can just say, hey, I want the tech. I want to be able to do automatic payment, payment acceptance for the investment I'm issuing, and then you can just get a part of our tech or the entire tech. And that is basically it. So, Gordon, you're pulling up, the time is out. Good. So guys, digital capital. Anybody, any working definition for me right now? What's your? Have you grasped the idea of taking a vehicle and just selling it to 100 people that can then, basically use it, for example, or selling an apartment in microfinancing, not to one person but to 1,000 people. And they all can participate. We're working right now with Apcoa. Last example, maybe that gives a little bit of context. Apcoa, these guys are looking to tokenize their parking stations. So whenever somebody is driving in, they need to pull a ticket, and then they drive out, they need to pay before. So now millions of investors could potentially in the future participate in that just by investing in the product they're raising. So every time a car drives out of the parking station or parking lot, then you as an investor would be credited microfunds. And so that's the beauty of tokenization. Thank you.